There really is this huge misconception about what science is, about what scientists are, and about what scientists have been in the past and what they should be. When you think of science, and I can tell you I've had conversations with students, and students have been like, hey, when we first heard about you and we were gonna meet you, we thought you were gonna be some old white guy. The Citizen Science Lab is a hands-on laboratory for the inquisitive mind and the science enthusiast. Our mission is to create more Black scientists and scientists of color through hands-on, life-changing STEM experiences. I am a traditional nerd or lover of science. I always have been. What drives me is just really wanting to know how things work, not only on a mechanical level, but also on a biological level. Like for me, understanding how biology works is very important to me, to have an appreciation for it. That's the type of person that I am. I have an appreciation for all things technology, science, biology, and just really sort of the wonders that we as a species are able to create fascinates me. Yeah, I could have dribbled a basketball, but I was terrible when I did. Yeah, I remember being a kid and people looking at me and saying like, how could you be so tall and be so bad at this? Right? But that was what it was like for me growing up. I played sports sort of on a recreational basis, but like I've always had this sort of this love for science. It really just was sort of a natural thing for me, and I gravitated towards it. So working in a pet shop when I was in high school.
Andy was very smart. He loved animals. When I would walk in his house, you never know whether you're going to see a turtle or a duck or a rabbit or a hamster, because he loved animals.
I would work at a pet shop. I worked at a veterinary clinic. These were all things that connected me and kept me connected with science. I had the Smithsonian. My mom would take me to the Smithsonian. That kept me connected with science. Some of the greatest memories I have of my mom is going to the Air and Space Museum, like on a regular basis, and being able to touch parts of the moon and stuff like that, and seeing the rockets. All these dreams and desires to be interested in science were really fostered through examples like that. And I was lucky enough where I lived in a city like Washington, D.C., where it was easy to see examples of people of color. It was easy to see examples of people of color who were in medicine, who were in dentistry. The majority of my teachers were people of color. So for me, it was obtainable, and I knew that it was possible. It was just, that was what it was like for me growing up. My upbringing was not traditional. I was born in Germany. My parents weren't married. My biological mother was a local German woman. My father was a Black soldier who was stationed there at the time. And I'm the oldest of three. We came to the U.S. when I was 4 years old, and we lived in New York for a while. And very shortly after that, I was pretty much abandoned by my mom and left with my father, who was an abusive alcoholic. And by that age, I'd already seen that very, very many times. I assume what happened was, I know what happened was my mom got to the U.S. and my father had drank one too many times, gotten violent one too many times, and she decided to take my sisters in. And so very shortly after that, I remember being visited by this woman that my father knew very well and my grandmother knew very well. And her name was Ms. Lil. And within the day, I was riding back to DC with Ms. Lil in her car. And when I got back to DC, I remember I was saying like, hey, Miss Lil, like she had cats. I was like, oh, Miss Lil, these cats are cool. And hey, Miss Lil, I was a kid, like just exploring the space. And I remember she told me, she said, you don't call me Miss Lil from now on, you call me Mom. And Miss Lil, my mother adopted me, raised me. And it wouldn't be until many years later I would find out that she was actually my father's estranged wife. And she came and kind of picked me up and rescued from my dad.
His mother was a jewel, and she wanted the best for him. She made sure he got the best, and she loved him. You couldn't ask a mother to give any more love than she did.
And so that's where I grew up, and that's how I ended up in DC. You know, you're talking about a child who's dealing with abandonment issues. It certainly was a challenge. People would often say that Andre was a bright kid, but Andre would often get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like as a kid, I would just sort of act out. I started off well. I went to Tuskegee, but then when after a few years in Tuskegee, I was broke. Long story short, I ended up getting in some trouble with the law. I couldn't go back to school. When I couldn't go back to school, I just sort of fell down this downward spiral and ended up battling drug addiction and homelessness. And so, you know, there were times where I ended up sleeping on the streets and in abandoned buildings.
There was a time when Lil, Andy's mom, said that she put him out. And when I go to the altar, I would always carry Andy's name to pray for him, because I didn't know where he was. And I didn't say anything to his mom because I knew she was upset. But I said, we have to pray about this because my child wasn't perfect. And it's hard out here.
The moment in which I realized I was done with drugs and addiction and ready to just give it up, I think it was Thanksgiving Day in 1995, if I'm not mistaken. And I had just woken up from a terrible, terrible binge. And at that point when I woke up, remember I'm living in DC, at that point I woke up, I'd had a gun to my head that night. I'd, run for my life a couple times, and I was just exhausted. And I woke up that morning and I called my mom, and I was like, I just want to come home. So I came home, and at that point I realized that if someone had said, hey, Andre, the only way you're gonna be able to kick this addiction is if you go to the top of the Washington Monument and just throw yourself off and have faith that when you get down to the bottom, you're gonna be okay and your addiction is gonna be cured. I was willing to do that. Like I literally would have done that. And I figured either way I'd be free. And so that's when I realized that I had to do something different with my life. And that's what I did.
I'm very proud of him. And God has really blessed him. And I just wish his mom was here today. I miss her so much.
I have a lot of gratitude for being able to have survived that experience, because there are a lot of people who didn't make it. And I remember at that time thinking, like, when I made it and I got clean, I was like, yo, what am I being saved for? Because there were so many times where I lost my life, or could have lost my life. I think it really wasn't until I had, a chance to really just kind of let everything out and deal with all of the sort of demons inside before I was able to focus and I think have enough experiences and enough strength and character to be able to build something like the Citizen Science Lab. I noticed or realized my purpose when I got into my PhD program. It took me a minute to talk about imposter syndrome. So, I certainly suffered with imposter syndrome maybe the first few months of being in that program, just simply because of the history that I had. But I got to a point where when I created the Sigma program, which was sort of the precursor to the Citizen Science Lab, and I saw how effective it was with students of color from the Hill District and from downtown, and from the very first school that we partnered with was Urban Pathways Charter School, downtown Pittsburgh. And to see their reaction to it, at that moment, I think I realized this is what I should be doing. When I did the Sigma program, I thought this would be a great thing to do when I graduated. I had a conversation with my wife. I was like, hey, this Sigma thing is kind of cool. Like, it would be really dope if after I finish my PhD, I could open up like a center or something like that where I can kind of continue this work. And she was like, yeah, that'd be really cool. And we were thinking for profit at the time. She was like, I don't know if a bank is going to give you enough money to get that going, right? It's going to be pretty expensive. And we're like, yeah. It was kind of like a dream that hung in the back of my head. Maybe if I got a bunch of money, I could do something like this. But what was really cool was there was a faculty member who helped me get the Sigma program started. His name is Dr. Alan Seidler. And he noticed the success of the program, and he was able to raise the money. And when he raised the money, he approached me and said, hey, we think what you're doing is great. We've got this grant, and we'd like for you to sort of head up a program off campus when you're done and make it what you think it should be. And I was like, sure, absolutely. I couldn't believe it, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna say yes right away, because if it's true, I wanna jump on it, right? And I had no reason to doubt, but literally I had the opportunity to take a small amount of seed funding and use that to create my vision and dream. And that was something I never thought I'd ever be able to do. That's how the Citizen Science Lab came about. The services that the Citizen Science Lab provide vary. It goes anywhere from summer camps, which are week-long summer camps. Each one focuses on a particular theme or discipline. And then we have what we call our initiatives. Our initiatives are after-school programs. They are designed to be a year-long, from September usually till May or June, where the students meet once a week and they solve real-world problems using real research skills and robotics and engineering skills, depending on what the initiative tackles.
Today, what we did is we worked with students to show them how to analyze and interpret sequences that they were generating over the course of about a 6-week workshop. And so this provides them a hands-on opportunity to get experience in the lab with things like DNA extraction, PCR, sequencing, things that typically they're only exposed to in college. So it's a very unique opportunity to help try to steer them towards STEM and towards molecular biology type sciences.
We also send our staff out to schools and carry out programming with the schools. We do contracts with schools and small community organizations and larger community organizations to provide the hands-on STEM component that they're missing. And so, our hands are in a lot of different pots and a lot of different piles and involved with a lot of organizations, because there's just this huge need. So we try to provide whatever service we think is necessary to get the students involved in science.
Working with Dr. Samuel was a great experience, and it was really shocking to see a Black scientist in person, because I never met him before. And it encouraged me to look more into the science field and to work with that.
I thought today's program here at the Citizen Science Lab was really cool because we got to work with DNA and pipettes and stuff, and it was really cool. Dr. Samuel was really helpful, and he was telling us all sorts of tips and stuff, and I really enjoyed working with him because he really engages with us.
The work that Dr. Samuels is doing is phenomenal. I feel like what he is doing is so important to let other African American children know that not only can they be doctors in science, not only can they excel in science and math and these STEM areas in education, but seeing him lets them know that they too can reach that goal. They can reach that same success. Like, oh, what am I going to use math for? What am I going to use science for? Limitless opportunities. I feel his lab lets the young children, the young teenagers growing up know that it is limitless what you can do. You don't have to be in academics. You don't have to be stuck in a lab per se. He makes it fun. He makes it engaging. He lets them know that you can have fun while still learning. So I think that that's very important. If I lived in Pittsburgh, my kids would be there as well.
I think what's so unique about Dr. Samuel's approach and the Citizen Science Lab's approach is that it makes science cool. It makes science fun. It makes science something that's accessible, right? It's not these little nerds in lab coats that are really great at school, that don't understand anything that's related to the streets. Andre's very focused on making sure that all the really cool aspects of science are tied into the cool aspects of our culture, right? And so the fact that we have a new project that's named from BDP, if you know Boogie Down Productions, you're giving honor to that, right? And he's making that accessible not only for our youth by having that be the entry point, but also for those parents that know BDP, right? They're like, oh, my child's in a science project, but it's called the BDP project, or it's called the Ice-T project. So you feel as a parent safe that your child's not just participating in this kind of staid, kind of like dry, corny, nerdy environment, but it's something that's going to be respectful of our culture and our history and our people.
This is the moment. May 29th, 2022. A year of work is about to pay off today. We have the Masters of the Mic fundraising festival at Stage AE here on the north side of Pittsburgh. I mean, this is hype. We got Big Daddy Kane, we got Slick Rick, we got DJ Jazzy Jeff and Rakim. We got Positive K coming in to do some comedy. We got the Carnegie Science Center coming up to do some science and explosive, really cool experiments. I mean, this is about to be dope. I'm super excited. We're about to give away 2 scholarships and hand-blown glass Maduro Awards to 2 alumni of the Citizen Science Lab programming that have gone off to college and become STEM majors. I mean, this is a huge celebration. We're celebrating 7 years of existence. We're celebrating the ability to make it through the pandemic and reach 4,000 kids since our existence in 2015. So this is about to be on. Science and hip hop are very, very important to me. It's what I grew up on. I grew up on science. I grew up loving science. I grew up being very inquisitive and wanting to know how everything worked. Grew up loving animals and wanting to understand how they affect our ecosystem and all of that. But I also love the hip hop, you know what I'm saying? I was a big hip hop fan, and these are some of the artists that like helped me through some of my tough times. Great storytellers like Slick Rick the Ruler, right? Who put out stories about walking the right path and the righteous path. You know, back in the day, we used to have music that really presented a message, right? We talked about what was going on in our neighborhood, the good and the bad, but we also put a lot of messaging out there for our youth to listen to and get the message about being productive and being a positive member of society and stepping away from the wrong path and walking the righteous path to success, right? And that's what this is all about. It's very personal for me because I've gone through very similar struggles, and now I'm able to share my love of science and hip hop music with the Pittsburgh community. This is phenomenal.
My first introduction into the STEM was with the Ice-T projects of Dr. Samuel and Dr. Medora. They taught kids, including me, how to code, and that happened during the freshman year of high school for me. And so I was introduced to a lot of technology, and then in high school I learned about biology, and that's kind of my passion.
One of the keys that I have, and I think one of the most important, and why it's so critical to work with a wonderful program like this in Science Lab, is because these students can basically early on find a direction that they want to go in these sort of STEM fields, and this helps them make sure that when they go to college, they already kind of have an understanding of where they want to go, what they want to do, and and they really get the most out of their 4 years when they're at college.
One of the things that we do, and this includes the phenomenal staff that we have aboard that teaches and instructs our students, what we do is we make sure that we are always ahead of the game. We keep an eye out for the new, changing, and emerging technologies and the science that's being brought out. Our staff is doing research into how to improve the existing experiments that we have. Our staff is constantly looking for really cool and new experiments to bring to the community. So I would say for us, just keep a lookout for whatever is new and advancing. Chances are we're going to be bringing it to the community, because that's how we evolve, but that's also how we get our communities to evolve. We are here at the wonderful NASA Johnson Space Center and Museum here in Houston, Texas. I am attending the SEEK conference. SEEK stands for Space Explorers Educators Conference. I come here every year to get a great arsenal of hands-on experiments to be able to take back to the Citizen Science Lab so that we can get our kids motivated about space exploration and travel. There were some significant challenges in starting the Citizen Science Lab. First and foremost, I'm a scientist by background, so not an entrepreneur, and knew nothing about the nonprofit world. So there were obstacles there. I had to learn a lot, and I had to learn a lot on the fly. A lot about finances, and a lot about quarterly reports, and a lot about how to maintain relationships and develop relationships with potential funders, with supporters, and so on. But I think probably the biggest obstacle is just being able to take in all the information and being able to process it and roll with the punches. And I think that was important. I learned a lot as I went along. I was open to learning. I recognized where my strengths were and where my weaknesses were, and I depended on people who could fill the gap in my weaknesses to help me build the Citizen Science Lab.
Andre's journey has been such an inspiration. If you knew kind of where he came and to see what the Citizen Science Lab has become and where it's going to continue to grow has been so motivating. I love the fact that he really believes that STEM can be an equalizer as it was in his own life, that it could really change the economic mobility of a person, of what their outcomes could be. And that if we do it correctly, we can really remove some of the biases inherent in other industries and other jobs. And that's what has made me come back to even become a part of the Citizen Science Lab. We had been friends for 25 years, but he needed some grant writing at the time. I am very selective on kind of what I sign on to do, and I believed in the mission. And as I talked to him and heard his excitement, I got excited about the process of being able to bring this program to other students.
The Capital Campaign is really going to change the future of the Citizen Science Lab. It is going to provide a permanent home for the Citizen Science Lab, which is very important. It's a very important step for us because we went from becoming a program to becoming an organization, a standalone organization, and to now becoming an institution. And that is significant for us. So this capital campaign is designed to help raise funds so that we can acquire some land in the Hill District, an existing building, reading center, media center named the Martin Luther King Media and Reading Center that has been abandoned for almost 17, 18 years, will now be utilized as, our headquarters, and will be the cutting edge YMCA of STEM right there in the Hill District. The other thing that's really fascinating about this site is that we plan on creating sort of our own version of Wynwood Walls, where all the art that goes up on the walls will be highlighting scientists of color, and will be contracted hopefully by local artists to change those murals on a regular basis, each one highlighting scientists of color. So bringing art and science together and becoming sort of this destination site for our kids in our neighborhood in the Hill District is exactly what this means for us. This new edition will mean that the mission continues for us. It means that we have a more solid footprint in the community, a more permanent footprint in the community that will allow us to continue our reach and expand our reach. It also provides a model for us to replicate the Citizen Science Lab. So now we have a playbook of what a facility will look like when we're ready to expand and open it up in another city and in another region.
Science is everywhere. The sun is science. The rain is science. The car that you drive, the air in those tires, all are science. And I feel that once you realize how much science is involved in just life, period, it helps you to understand how important it is for children at a very young age to understand the importance of it and then to foster that throughout the rest of their life.
I want children to leave the Citizen Science Lab with a joy and an appreciation of the sciences of STEM, but more than that, I want them to know that they're able to do it, right? That there should not be a space in STEM or in the sciences where they don't feel comfortable, where they are not supported, where they feel that they cannot accomplish tasks that they see their other peers doing.
We are people from all over the place. We are Black and brown people. We are people from the LGBTQ community. We are people from all over the world and from many different communities within these cities and within the United States. And while only about 5% of PhDs in the life sciences are made up of African Americans, it's important for this work because that is how we believe we're going to change that demographic. That is how we believe we're going to change what the face of science is. And making sure that our communities understand that there are scientists of color who have made significant contributions to this field and that they can look up to them and be just like them. You can get involved with the Citizen Science Lab by going to thecitizensciencelab.org and clicking on volunteer or support in the tabs. Or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Everybody give it up. Give Daddy time. Let's go, y'all. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. Here I am. A terrorist. Hit a place out 240 and cheese. I'm on board and see. I just conquer. Stop another rep with evil. My invention of the torpedo, nothing but a milliliter. I'm a kilo, second to none. Making MCs one, so don't try to step to desire the one. I believe rappers just like Tylenol, and they know it. So I don't see why you're all trying to front, perpetrate the stunt. captivate the whole crowd for the dominant. Rhymes are you, definitely immune. Better than Dynasty or Hill Street Blue. I'm sure the score and door for more without a floor. Cause I get raw. Say ho! Say ho! Say yo, baby, yo, baby, yo. Yo, baby, yo, baby, yo. Say yeah! Look, I get speech like a reverend. Back to start severing. In my lifetime, believe I never been beat or eaten, just took it out. You don't come to think about it. I keep seats looking out. Real nervous when I met you, sir. So give me that title for it. You don't deserve it. I work like a slave to be called a master. When I say about it, you know they can master. You perfectly get it. Cause I'm committed to entertainer and trainer and technique. Where did I go with flow and flow? To let you know I'm amateur, I'm not an amateur. I'm professional, the questioner without doubt superb. So full of action, my name should be the verb. My voice will flow on every note. When I clear my flow, that's all she wrote. The minute that the game starts to go on, believe it's on be smooth sailing, so on. Cause I put other rappers out of their misery. Get them in a battle and make them more history. Fooling that schooling, MCs and I do know what you want, take a pull. As I sit back cooling on the throne, with the boss microphone. Don't let the child get hold us all, cause I can fool. Alright y'all, if y'all not hip hop, I need to know. When I say hip, you say hi, hip, hip. When I say no, you say stop, don't. Let go, get bold, I just can't hold back and forth, cause I'm the man for soul. In control and effects, so what the heck? Rock the discotheque, this move is on that. I'm just the next check, move to it. Strong, strong, enormous, and ruthless. I do the crowd, I do this to the stage and into the mic. Cause I'm shooting gift from C-Fans to all my straight trigger like skipping a gym. Feel my blood fist, all my justice. That's so no risk, you know what it is. Believing is never, I'm ready with camera. When I grab the mic, believe it don't care. That's the nigga rhyme, the giant chamber. So let's all sing the big daddy anthem. So I feel my rhymes go like an afro. I entertain the game and came to never have no problem. Like speech number 4, even if I start, I'ma still come over. The rappers can understand the rights of this. Sure, no better push, everybody got grip. My acrobatic is something that don't ask to the man. I'm cool daddy, no makes my break, I take them out, I'm thinking the head, put in the bed. Watch me take a picture for the head, rearrange your toe. Take a look, move to the danger zone. I can kill at will. Teaching the skill, got screwed, you know real. Just stand still and chill the top bill. Giant to drill and jump on my field. You head up. Yo, don't even get it. The teacher is teaching. Set it off, let it off, yeah. Run to the ending. You never been it. The move, put with the smooth rap low. Like a bottle of juice. Rhymes are being poured down your ear. Crisp and clear. Side here. The wind tan smear. Hit the bottom here. With the mark left. That you can all play. Rockin' a party. It's a small thing. I've been many places on regular basis. Looking down mics for the only traces. That I've been there and then at the party. The mic never prints. And all it was a body. So take caution. I'm not horsing around. Let it go down crowd. I'm taking yours, son. Just acknowledge the way that I kick it. Cause the rap was a house. You be a big hit. And the spits on the microphone. Choking on the pole. Cause daddy's home. And back with me. Assassin's the help. To put a quarter in your. Cause you played yourself. I bring superior. Always taking care of you. No